Welcome back, Grace family. Today's conversation is a really special one. I'm sitting down with my friend Ryann, who is married to one of my childhood friends, and we are talking about something that many families walk through but don't always know how to put it into words: grief, parenting, and what it looks like to find joy again after loss. Both Ryann and her husband Zach experienced unimaginable loss, each losing their spouses. And what makes their story so powerful is not just what they've walked through, but how they've chosen to build a life and a family together on the other side of that loss. This conversation is honest, it is tender, and it is full of so much love for their partners they lost, for their children they are currently raising, and for the life they are continuing to build. So, with that, let's get into it. Okay, Ryann, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited for you to share your journey and be vulnerable with our listeners, because, we are all so deeply human, and your story is going to touch people in a way that I don't know that any of my guests have. This is a different topic for us, still involving blended families and how we got to where we are, because everybody's story is different. But, this space is going to allow people to connect, to relate, to feel seen and heard.
For sure.
And I know we have listeners that share your similar story. And I know this will be a profound conversation. So thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Not a problem. I actually said at my husband's funeral, I spoke at his funeral and I did a top 10 list. We had an inside joke from a class that we took in college together, that we had sat and watched David Letterman's top 10 with the professor. Neither one of us had the grade that we were looking for. And the senior student said, hey, if you go to his house at the Christmas party and you watch, he'll for sure bump your grade. So we had talked actually before that. We had lost my grandmother earlier in the year, a good friend of ours, a couple months before Jason passed. And after our good friend's funeral, I had said, hey, if something ever happens to you, I'll give your obituary, because he really was not a fan, because he said they just really didn't reflect anything about the person. So I jokingly in September of that year said, for sure, I'll do it, thinking, I'll be 80 years old on a little walker going up there, never imagining a few months later. But I did the top 10. And the one thing that I did say, number one, was that Jason loved Jesus. And he did. He loved to talk to his employees about Jesus. And I said, and I still mean today, even if one person comes to know Jesus better or comes back because of our story, then it is worth it. So I'm excited to have this platform. It's something that I have prayed a long time for, different ways, different platforms to be able to share
absolutely
all of our stories.
Yeah. Well, and what a unique way that you and I connected.
Oh, for sure.
And so just a little backstory for listeners. Ryann is married to one of my dear childhood friends. Our families have been close since I was elementary school. And then, Ryann and my friend Zach married, and you'll get to hear more about that story as she talks. But we were connecting I had reached out to Zach first on Facebook, knowing that he's not a big speaker. I thought, he's going to tell me to kick rocks. But I knew that, he had a story to share. And that's when I thought, you know what, I'm just going to reach out to Ryann. I don't know her yet, but I'm going to send her a message. And you had, kicked off your wellness business, and it's called Grace in Motion,
yes,
which we are co-parenting with Grace.
Absolutely.
And so I just thought, we're connecting in a different way, and this just was meant to be.
For sure.
I'm glad to provide that platform for you, because it's going to benefit so many people.
I'm excited.
Myself included. So, well, first tell us a little bit about yourself and your first marriage to Jason.
Well, as you know, my name's Ryann, so that was easy. Jason and I met in college. We actually met fighting over a Chiefs-Broncos game. He was from Cheyenne, Wyoming, was a huge Denver Broncos fan, and he was,
Boo.
I know, right? He was bashing my Chiefs in our Psychology 101 class, and I spun around and said, look, dude, I don't know who you are, but we don't talk about the Chiefs like that here. And that was it. That was the start of our relationship. We were married 22 and a half years. He was light and joy and funny and just always parodying songs around the house. And he was always the one to play balloon soccer with the kids when I was like, please don't break things. But he was always one to talk, loved to meet people, talk to people, just super social. The life of the party. I mean, I could go on, but he was truly, first and foremost, a Jesus follower who really liked to challenge other people, talk to other people about Jesus, loved our family, loved all of his friends, just a light and wonderful human being.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys have 2 kids.
We do.
Yeah.
We have a 22-year-old boy. His name is Dylan. And I have a 20-year-old daughter named Kendall. So tell me a little bit about, who Jason was as a parent. You say he was the dad to, play balloon soccer, and what kind of relationship did he have with your kids? He was my daughter's best friend. They were inseparable. They had inside jokes. They would drive me crazy with their inside jokes, but she was 100% daddy's girl. We're very close now. We always have been very close, but 100% she was daddy's girl, and he was a girl dad through and through. He would always bow down to her batting of her eyelashes and all the things. With my son, they bonded over football. Both Jason and Dylan played football in college, so that was always a common thread for them. They were always joking. But Jason traveled for work, so he would be gone from Tuesday to either Thursday or Friday. So he by proxy got to be the fun one to an extent, because he
dads do.
Yeah, dads do in general, but he was very involved, always wanted to know all the things, although the kids often joke because he would still call me to ask me what date their birthday was if he was filling out paperwork. So maybe the details, not so much, but the generalities of life, he was wonderful, but always trying to make them laugh.
Yeah.
I think after his passing, that was the biggest place where we really felt empty, or that I tried to fill maybe too hard. And the kids finally just said, hey, we don't need you to fill that spot. But he was always the one that would make us laugh. And I always felt like he knew exactly what to say to make somebody feel better, especially the kids, especially Kendall. So I know after he passed, that was a big thing for me, just not knowing how to fill that space. Because that our personalities were very similar, but he was always able to be a lot more lighthearted and less serious, laugh at himself a little bit better than I do. So that was an interesting area that I had to maneuver after he passed.
That would be tough to think, I need to fill both sets of shoes. I need to, and I would imagine that it's hard not to lose yourself a little bit in that, and trying to balance both mom and dad roles.
That's such a huge thing. And I think I've realized in the course of time since Jason passed that in the moments that I had before he passed, and he passed of COVID, and I'm not, afraid to talk about that at all, but I had to make the decision to end life support. And so I have realized there was a me prior to that day, and there was a me prior to that moment. And then after we turned everything off and he passed, there's a me after, and that looks 1,000% different. Like I tried to explain to people, like, you can lose, and there's no losses are not comparative, so please don't misunderstand me. But when you lose your spouse of 22 and a half years, everything in your life is different. There's not a space of my life that was the same after he passed. So I can remember my sister driving us home, and it was me and my daughter who had gone that day because of COVID restrictions. We couldn't have everybody there, and I hadn't seen him since I dropped him at the hospital. So we had such a short time to actually prepare for that moment. And then when I got home, all I can remember thinking is, okay, I have to do everything. And so I went into that mode of protection, into how do I fill his space. And it was probably 2 months in when I was having a conversation with the kids, and I tried to parody a song that Jason had parodied like a million times. And they said, just, Mom, we don't need you to do that. And I can remember breaking down crying because I just said, but I want you to have that. And they were like, but we don't have that anymore. And it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
We did have that, though.
We did have that. And so we hang on to those. But, you know, it's such a vast wilderness that you step into.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine. Well, I'm sure he is still very much present in your life today, and especially through your children. So as is your husband now, Zach, as is his wife, Melissa. I see her in the boys so much. So
they are like the most spinning image of her in so many beautiful ways. And she was such a, very similar to Jason, just a light, like just one of those people that when you meet, she was sarcastic and funny and beautiful and so smart and such a hands-on mom, loves snuggles, all the things. I mean, just an absolutely gorgeous human who fought so hard for Zach and for the boys through her cancer battle, and just, you know, did everything that she could. Everything was always about the boys, like going back and looking at some of her Facebook posts, so just cracked me up, and just all the things. She was light and wonderful.
Absolutely. And you knew Melissa?
I did. Both Jason and I knew Zach and Melissa from a larger social circle. So it's funny because people say, oh my gosh, you knew each other. And I say, yes, we did. Not as best friends, not as super close friends, but enough that we were in several, you know, social situations. Jason and I were at Melissa's 30th birthday party. And so it's kind of fun now because I have pictures with Melissa for things that we've done, and I can have that story to tell the boys of like, hey, look, this was something that your mom and I did together, because the boys were 8, 6, and 3 when Melissa passed. Yeah. So the two olders have some memories. Obviously, the youngest Crew, he doesn't have any really solid memories for himself. Sure. So that's been something that we've bonded over quite a bit, is seeing pictures of me with his mom. Yeah. And that's been something that has helped.
Oh, how wonderful is that? What a unique puzzle piece for them.
Oh, for sure. We joke all the time that Jason and Melissa had to have been upstairs orchestrating this whole, this whole thing.
I love that. Well, tell us a little bit about what it looks like to honor both of them in your marriage and your home today.
As far as in our home, I mean, it's not a topic that we ever back away from. I mean, we talk about Melissa openly. We talk about Jason openly. The boys ask my kids questions about Jason or about, you know, how they feel sometimes. I talk to the boys all the time about Melissa and tell them, you know, hey, especially when they're frustrated at me for asking them to do something maybe they don't want to do. Yeah. I'll say, you know, your mom will haunt me. I mean, I know that she would want you to do this, so don't, and they'll laugh. But we honor birthdays. You know, we still make a cake, Melissa's favorite cake, and sing her happy birthday. Yeah. We talk about dates of death, and, you know, they understand when certain time frames are coming up. We don't shy away from it. So we talk about it. And as far as in Zach and I's marriage, it's a very similar thing. Like, we know each other's dates, know the dates that are coming up, and try to ask each other like, hey, how are you doing? But we also understand, sorry, I promised I was not going to get much. You're fine. We both also understand bittersweet. Ooh.
You're good. Take all your time.
So we check in with each other. We make sure that, you know, we're aware of dates, but we also know that everything that the boys do, that my kids do, is always, I don't think darkened is the right word, but there's always an aspect of that person that's missing. Yeah. There's always a joy. Like, we're always super helpful. Like, my son, sorry. Whew. Okay. My son played college football for Harding University in Searcy, Arkansas, and they won the national championship while he was a member of the team. And I can remember that day being so excited and so happy, but so, man, I wish your dad was here. Yeah. And Zach acknowledging that to me of like, hey, I know this is a tough day. Yeah. Or, you know, when Case and her Crew, like, they get awards at school, like, Melissa would have been so proud. She taught at the school that they go to. And so those types of things, you know, we acknowledge to each other, like, it's okay that you might be a little bit sad today, or it's okay that you might feel like you need to talk about the other person. And we, with the boys, we always try to make a point, or I've always tried to make a point of asking them where they feel comfortable. Like, where do you feel comfortable? Especially with the oldest, Case and I was really careful when we first started dating. And then when we started talking about marriage, of asking Kaysen, where do you feel comfortable with me in things like the Mother's Day tournaments? Like, do you want me to be there as your bonus mom? Would you be more comfortable with one of the other kids' moms that you've known forever? Like, I want you to tell me. And he finally was just like, stop. Like, you're my bonus mom. Like, I know that I had another mom, and I do have another mom, but it's okay. It's okay. And then same with Creek. Now, Crew being a little bit younger when Melissa passed, surprisingly, I think my older two and he have been the harder to get to come around. Crew not having any concrete memories. When Zach and I got ready to get married, he pushed back pretty hard. And when we finally asked him, he just said, I don't want somebody to replace mom, which is a very valid feeling. And it's something that he hadn't really voiced at all.
Sure.
So we were happy that he voiced it. So we kind of I talked to a psychologist friend of mine and asked, like, how can I help bridge this? Because I've always tried to have that open conversation. And the conversation came around to, he doesn't have memories of his own. So he feels like every memory that you make with him is taking away that moment. And I hadn't really seen that perspective, but we've been able to really push with him. He looks like Melissa. His hands are very similar to Melissa, his eyes, his hair. So that was a recommendation of the psychologist, is to really point to physical features that he carries. And so now when he's feeling that way, he's gotten to be a lot more open with us about saying, like, hey, I don't want her to replace mom. And me saying, dude, I will never replace, just like your dad doesn't replace Jason for the kids, but I want to be where you want me to be. And he's loved, he's my same one that has never had a mom at school events. And so things like Christmas parties, the dreaded Christmas parties for third graders. I know. No, I love it. But, he's very much like, are you coming? And the first one I came to, his comment was, oh my gosh, I've never had a mom at one of those things. So for me, it's such an honor to step in that role. But also, I always say to the boys, like, I'm bonus mom.
Yeah.
You have a mom who's still very actively looking down on you and is in your life. And I'm just here to help out with that.
Absolutely. That's something that I can relate to directly, as being that bonus mom. When my boys were 3 when I met them, and they have a mother that is very present in their life. She's a wonderful mother. And that was always my place. Like, where do I fit in? Where do, again, there was some of that in the beginning. They felt defensive of mom, or, well, what about mom, or what, and so I would always, tell them, I am not trying to be mom. You have a great mom. I'm just Jode. And I'm my own thing in your life. And building that unique relationship with them, that's just mine and theirs. That's completely different from theirs and their moms. Yeah. I can support them in a motherly way. I can love them in a motherly way in my home, but never trying to be mom or replace mom. And so that's something I relate to on a different level, but can relate to that some.
And it's just such an interesting paradox, because Zach's kids were younger when Melissa passed, so they're defensive of memories that they didn't have. Yeah. Whereas my 2 were 17 and 14 when Jason passed, so they're defensive of memories that they do have. Yeah. And so Zach's done a beautiful job of meeting them where they're at. And that does not mean that there hasn't been times where his heart has hurt because of, situations or things that they maybe didn't want or didn't express that they wanted him involved in. And it's difficult in my role to play intermediary to an extent of, like, I understand what they're saying. I also understand what Zach is saying, and trying to meet that middle ground with the older 2 has been a little bit more difficult than I think, because Zach's very, I know for Kendall, she never really pushed back. She just wasn't maybe as open as she is now. And I think part of that is that Zach has the very same sarcastic sense of humor as Dad. But it's been really beautiful to see them now laughing and joking, have their own little thing. Yes. Zach took Christmas shopping for boots. She wanted boots for Christmas, and they went and had their own bonus dad and daughter date. And I know that was that for me, like I cried that whole night, not because I was sad, but because I was like, okay, this is opening. And even Dylan now has come around to that. Zach's not trying to replace his dad, but is there to defend him and do all the things. And so it's an interesting, such a different, and we agree all the time that one of the reasons that it works so well for us is that our kids are not of the same age.
Absolutely.
I think blending a family where the kids would have all been the same age would have been a little bit difficult. Just competing ideals. But Cruz got Dylan at 22, and he thinks that Dylan walks on water.
I bet.
And Kendall is enjoying getting to be the big sister because she was always the little sister, so she gets to do that. And
she's still the only girl.
She's still the only girl, which the boys remind me of all the time. She gets everything that she wants. I'm like, Kettle, this is pot. You're black.
That's right.
You're fine.
Exactly. You're not missing out on anything, buddy.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a turning point in your life was meeting someone even on your radar when you and Zach met. Had you even told yourself you would marry again?
Oh no, I had said absolutely not. I had said from day one, and Zach will tell you the same thing. We were both very much put our heads down. We're going to raise our kids. We had the love of our lives. We were not interested in any possible way. And even when Zach and I started talking, it was about things like, hey, I know that this date is coming up, or Dylan had started football season, and Zach, being a single father who had lost a spouse, understood all the emotions that came with that. And had reached out and said, hey, if you need to talk, if you need something done, very even more bizarrely in the universe, although I don't believe there's any bizarre things. I think God had it all the way along. Sure. Zach lived less than a mile away from me. So he had said, hey, if you need somebody to come help with yard work or whatever, I've got 3 boys, we're always happy. And so that was kind of very innocuously how things started, just conversations over Facebook Messenger, just checking in, whatever. And then it did help that I knew Zach to be a man of character because we had spent time together, and it did make it a little bit more comfortable that he knew Jason, but also just that shared conversation. And the first time that we went to brunch, I think we both thought it would be just like an hour conversation, and the intent was to just kind of like debrief, talk to each other. And 4 hours later, we were like, oh gosh, we probably should get back to things. And that's how it just kind of kept developing, was more conversations of that. And then over the course of a few months, it kind of became, oh, well, I mean, would you be interested in dating? And then still very much like, we're never getting married. Again, never going to happen. But God laughed.
God has his own plan, right?
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Absolutely. Well, obviously there, like you said, there's a different level of understanding that most people don't have, being through the same things. What felt different about connecting with someone who already understood grief?
I never had to hide it, and he never had to hide Melissa from me. Like that wasn't ever we came into it talking about each other's spouses and talking about, all the things that had happened. And there wasn't a air of defensiveness. I say often, I don't think that I could have remarried someone who had other children and their spouse was still alive, because there would have been, I think, defensiveness, or, somebody my age who had never been married before, not understanding, what it's like to have that long-term relationship and not feel defensive of a ghost, because people are just like, man, I don't know that I could do that.
I can understand some of those feelings. Very much.
Yeah.
It is, stepping into a role where somebody's had a past, and we all have a past, but to have a relationship like that with somebody else, and then learning to navigate on the other side of that relationship, it can be so difficult. And which is why we're having these conversations today. Somebody can relate to this in so many different aspects. And so tell me about, fears that might have come up in the beginning, early on. How do you navigate some of those complex feelings, especially with the kids?
I was actually getting ready to say, don't get me wrong. I knew Melissa, and so that also means that I knew how amazing she was.
Yeah.
So I think for the fear side of things, for me personally, my
Mm-hmm.
biggest fear was being good enough, being enough, because I knew who she was. And we live in small communities, and everybody knew her battle and everybody knew her. So there was definitely a fear of, man, am I good enough? And then also being a little bit older than Zach and having older kids of like, ooh, can I go back and do that? Like, do I have enough? And Zach was very open early on of like, hey, you know what you're getting into, right? Are you okay with that? And I'm like, yeah. But I did have times where I had to sit down and actually think, and I would say the same thing to him, like, hey, you know what you're getting into. I have 2 older kids. That comes with its own set of things. And so, but we always said, and very to the forefront, we would tell everybody the 5 kids were what our priority was. So at any point in our dating life, at any point, if they said, yeah, we just can't do this, then we were both of agreement that we would, whether we loved each other or not, honor that. So I think the biggest fear was just how would we mesh? How would things work? Like how, but as kids do, they made it a lot easier than what
I'm sure
we probably made it out to be.
For sure. We tend to muddy the waters more than kids do. They're a lot more black and white than we are. But you spoke to this a little bit a minute ago. But, was there anything that surprised you about blending 2 families who had already experienced loss?
It's something that Zach and I talk about often. Unfortunately, I think the thing that surprised us most was having to mitigate and take care of others' feelings about what we were doing.
Isn't that wild?
Way outside of our children, because our kids were great. Our kids were fine. I mean, even the bumps that we've had, our kids were fine. They were always fine with the process, we were always very conversational about things, but the level of need to justify ourselves to our friend groups, much less so probably my friend groups. They were very supportive. The only question they had was the same question that everybody had, which was, you're starting over, like being a parent again. Are you okay with that? Never anything about Zach. Right. His friend group, a little bit more defensive of us being together. I am different from Melissa. I'm probably a little bit more serious, a little bit more, I don't know. I'm not Melissa. And some people were okay with that. And some people had a lot of difficulty with that. Yeah. A lot of time, I was very conscientious, at least very intentional in making sure that Melissa's mom was okay and making sure that Melissa's sisters were okay. I think it took a lot more time and a lot more proof before they were okay. And so I think that's the thing that we both agree on shocked us, was how much time and how much mental energy was spent on things outside of us and our kids. Yeah. That really did have an impact on our relationship. In fact, we were laughing about it a couple of weeks ago. I think any argument we've ever gotten into had nothing to do with us or the kids. It had to do with outside forces having something to say. Yeah. And then finally just becoming okay with.
I can only imagine, like, to have to carry that weight and feel like you needed to prove yourself and feel like you needed to, I didn't even think about that, about, her family, who's still probably very much involved in the kids' lives. Present. And, feeling like you needed to prove to them that you were worthy, that you were, like you said, good enough.
And also trying to just, I had, and Melissa's mother is beautiful and wonderful and has been lovely, but I knew that was, and I understood it being hard. And so I wanted to honor that, but also explain like, hey, but I am here for the boys. And one of the biggest gifts that she gave me was in February, before Zach and I got married in March. She had come down for a basketball game and we sat, and she said, I see what you're doing. Like, thank you. And, just gave me that permission to be the bonus mom, and understood that I would never. And I welcomed, I'm like, please send me all the pictures. Like, I'm working on a wall in our house right now, because we acknowledge that we're beautifully blended. And So I'm working on a wall right now that will have pictures of Melissa and Zach and the kids, and then Jason and myself and the kids.
I love that.
So that way there's always that visual reminder of everybody, and we're very open that they still are very much in our lives. But that was probably by far the biggest gift that I was given, was when Miss Jane, said, "Hey, I see it. Like, I appreciate it." And we have a great relationship now. We talk when she's there. We chat via text sometimes.
Yeah.
And so that made it a lot easier.
Absolutely. To have that blessing and that support is huge.
Yeah.
We, as women, have our own insecurities anyway. And then to be dealing with that set of pressure on top of the grief that you're still carrying yourself.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I can't imagine the weight of that. You've touched a little bit on how the grief showed up for Crew. It's Crew the youngest.
Crew is the youngest,
How it showed up for Crew. Has it shown up differently for each of the kids? Age, personality, timing.
Oh, for sure.
All of them are different. We're all little different human beings. So
they are. But the funny thing is we joke all the time that my oldest, Dylan, and Crew are the same human beings, which might be scary if you say that, but their personalities are very similar.
I love that.
And so we joke all the time. And so Dylan's came out in more of a resistance, like Crew's.
Yeah.
More of a resistance to when Zach would, want to have a conversation with him about stuff, or just shoot the breeze, like more resistance to that. So it's really interesting that our youngest and oldest responded the same way.
Yeah.
My youngest and his oldest, Kason and Kendall, they are the exact same human beings. They are very smart, very sarcastic, very introspective. They both responded in a similar way of being open, but cautiously open. And then it taking a little bit of time. And then once it did, like Kason and I crack jokes all the time, and him and Kendall will respond the exact same way. Creek is probably the outlier as far as our personality type goes.
He's your true middle child.
He is, and he is looks the most like Melissa, body frame. Yeah. His eyelashes, they're gorgeous. I joke with him all the time. They're totally wasted on him. But Melissa had those gorgeous eyelashes as well. Yes. Creek is the snuggler, and so that's kind of how his came out was, he is also our crap talker of the family. Like, you would never know it. If you see it, like, we tell his teachers that all the time, and they're like, absolutely not. I'm like, yes. So Creek's came out more so in a lot of trash talking, and that's partially because they go to a school district that's 8 miles from where my kids went. My kids' school district is a pretty big sports powerhouse. The district that the boys are in hasn't been to this point, but hopefully that's changing. But Creek's way of responding to grief and to that change was to crap talk a lot towards me. Yeah. And the fact that I was from this other district. Once I kind of started responding back to him in that way, and I realized that was kind of how he was combating it, and then I would kind of come back, and then we would laugh, then that's kind of how the buy-in came there.
I love that. That's my husband is a lot like that. Like he's going to cut up to make things light. If something's uncomfortable or it might hurt a little bit, if we can razz each other and make a joke out of it, then it's easier to talk through it that way.
For sure.
You've touched on this, but how do you and Zach make space for grief without letting it, run your home or run your relationship? When you're both carrying, grief in different ways, but the same.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the interesting thing for both of us is that, like I said, we both know each other's dates, that we can predict that something's going to be more sad. So we'll check in like, hey, do you need to talk about it? Hey, are you okay? Or just, hey, I acknowledge that today may be tough for you. So something that Zach mentioned early on in our relationship was seeing a number scale. Like, how are you? Are you a 10 today, which means you're great and fabulous and everything's wonderful? Or are you a 3 today? Yeah. So on those days, like, that's something that I've tried to be intentional. Like, hey, give me your number. Because if you tell me you're a 5 or below, then I'm going to sweep in and I've got everything today. You just do you. Yeah. And also that acknowledgement, it does make such a huge difference that we've both experienced loss, because we know, I knew Kason's first football game, whether he voiced it or not, was going to be difficult because that's a milestone moment, all those things. Like, so now I will try to be more intentional of how those days leading up to go. Like I'll try to take on more things. But both of us are just really intentional in checking in like, hey, how are you? Or if I'm down, it's nice to be able to say, hey, I'm struggling today because this.
Yeah.
And then, the greatest tool that I had after was doing counseling. And the biggest tool that he gave me, everyone should. I'm a psychology undergrad, so I'm a big proponent anyway.
Yeah. Yes.
But the one tool that he really gave me was the 15-minute rule. He was like, look, give yourself 15 minutes to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. Wallow in it, roll around in it, throw a fit, do all the things. And then when the timer goes off, ask yourself, do I need another 15 minutes or can I go on to the next thing? So I think that's the biggest tool that we've constantly used of like, hey, I'm going to give myself this amount of time because you do have to deal with it. You have to go through it. You have to acknowledge it or it will eat you alive.
Absolutely.
But then also we have the beauty from ashes. I mean, the Bible promises that, we see the stories over and over again of absolute destruction and then return to beauty. And we have that story. So in those times, we allow ourselves to have the grief, but then also you have to turn your eyes to the joy because it is a choice to live in grief or to live in the moment.
Yeah. That's wonderful that you guys have you have great communication. You have a level of understanding emotions that some people don't ever get to. You've experienced, like you said, the highs and the lows, the beauty with the darkness, and the fact that you both have that in one another and can hold space for each other when those moments arise and not feel like you have to, push those down or not be allowed to feel. Or I think that happens in relationships that haven't experienced the loss that you have. But that's something that my husband and I work on in our marriage.
For sure.
Is allowing each other to feel a certain set of feelings or work through past, traumas or work through, your ongoing healing and holding space for each other. It's a tough concept. And I think people need to do it more.
Well, and rightly or wrongly, I mean, I don't know that we would either have chosen this advantage, but we both had long-term marriages. I was married for 22 and a half years. He was married for 14 when Melissa passed. We have a very real set of what worked and what didn't work.
Yes.
And we were very clear coming into it. And Zach has been very clear. I've said certain things that I didn't want to repeat, things that I wish I could go back and fix with Jason, things that he wishes he could go back and do differently with Melissa. And so we've made a commitment to really try on those things to change them.
Yeah.
Have we been perfect? Absolutely not. And make no mistake, I will sit here and tell you that we have beauty. There are days where we're like, what in the world? Like,
I'm sure.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
But, in relationships, for them to grow and for them to truly be a good representation of what you want your kids to see, you have to be able to hold the space for emotion. And it's the conversation that we constantly have with all of our children is like, there is nothing that you're going to say that is going to surprise us because we've had those feelings too. Right. We have them too.
Yeah.
When Crew was upset a couple nights ago, and it is still a repeated thing that he mentions is that replacement.
Yeah.
That's his biggest fear. And so he and I had a talk and a hug and a cry and all the things. And I said, you don't think I feel that same way? You don't think that I'm concerned about you feeling that way or ever you losing that feeling towards your mom? I'm like, he goes, oh, so you understand. He said, yeah, absolutely. So that constant conversation of, especially with boys, pushing really hard on boys, to acknowledge that's what you're feeling. That's okay. This is not a judgment. Like what you're feeling is what you're feeling.
Yes.
So feel it. And then we'll talk about it, try to find where the cause is at and see if we can remedy that or at least come to a better solution. Yeah. But feel it, and acknowledge it is the biggest thing.
Absolutely.
My son was not an acknowledger, did not acknowledge feelings. And unfortunately now a little bit later in the healing process,
Yeah.
It's coming. And then my daughter is just different. Kaysen's also very similar to Kendall. They're not outspoken about how they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I used to ask Kendall, hey, do you need to go to counseling? Do you want to go to counseling? And she would say, no, I'm writing it down. I'm processing it. Don't worry, I'm processing it. And she honestly was, but also learning that each of our 5 children's identity, they're processing things in their very, very different ways.
Yeah.
And also trying to be sensitive to 5 different varieties.
Yes.
In addition to each other.
Oh my gosh.
Some days we do great, and some days we have to say, oh, I'm in my feels today.
Yeah.
And I'm always in my feels. Let's be real. I'm a girl.
Me
I'm
too.
always in my feels.
Yeah. Some days are just have to be overwhelming, and just to be able to say, you talked about earlier, I'm at a 5 today. Can you pull the 95? I think Brene Brown talks about that, and I love her. And, she talked about how she would come home some days and be like, where are you at? You've got 75? Because I only got 25. And, being able to be allowed to feel what you're carrying. You're carrying also, for 5 kids.
Also, a conversation we have a lot too is it is easy both as an adult and as a kid to identify any bad day as a day that I am sad because of this. We have done what we can, and we continue to say, is that truly the reason, or are you having a bad day because something bad happened at school or something because a habit, that I know is easy to get into is using that as the overall reason for everything in life, and being really careful to identify, are you really grieving today? Like, is it a sadness over that? Or are you mad because you missed a play at basketball or whatever, and really helping to shape and identify that not everything is about that.
Yeah. It would be easy to say it is. It would be easy to, I had a bad day. It's because I'm sad. It's because of my grief, instead of just that. I've never thought about that. That's a really great point.
You have to fight. I mean, even as an adult, I have to fight sometimes of no, I'm just sad today because my coffee was cold at Starbucks and I'm just annoyed by that, and not because there's always an undercurrent of grief. There's not a day that Zach doesn't talk to Melissa in his head or remember her. There's not a day I don't talk to Jason in my head and remember him.
Yeah.
But if you get swept away in the current, it will take you to an ocean of grief that you cannot swim out of. You have to make a choice to sit on the bank and to let it flow. And sometimes you dip your toes in it because you have to.
Sure.
But there's greenery and flowers and trees on the bank, and you have to choose to go back into the wildflowers and be happy again. Yeah.
Well, that's a perfect segue into, let's talk about joy and love.
Hey.
And how that coexists with guilt and grief. Did you feel guilty when happiness returned?
I think we both felt guilty the first time we went to brunch. It felt like this really odd. I think I might be cheating.
Yeah,
I might be cheating, but he's not here. And Zach actually voiced it at one point of it just feels a little awkward. I know we're not doing anything wrong, but. And for he and I, and for the kids, when we were just together, that joy, that happy, that was easy for us. We're like, oh, wow, this is cool. We get the second chance. I think, as I before mentioned, when we left that bubble and let other people have their opinion and push into that bubble, that's when it became difficult.
Yeah.
But then after, I don't know, probably after a year to 2 years, we both became pretty protective of that, to a point where we had to ask, hey, if you can't be happy, then please step away. If you can't be happy and you can't accept that we are happy, we are grabbing a chance at love again. And then we need you to step away. But also, I tell people all the time, it's like having 2 kids. You don't stop loving the first one because you had a second one.
Right.
Your heart just grows in different ways, and it grows around the grief. It doesn't replace the peace that's missing in all of our hearts for the people that are gone. It's just that our hearts have grown around that now to an extent that it's still there. We still feel it. Sometimes it's sharper than others, but man, you gotta hang on to happy when you can find it, because goodness knows there's lots of negative.
Yeah. And we're here, we're living.
Yeah.
We have,
and both Jason and Melissa would have kicked both of our tails had we not chosen to live again. Like Jason and I had those, even though his stint with COVID, I didn't get to see him after I left him at the emergency room. I knew, because of conversations that we had had through the course of a 22-year-old marriage, that he would have wanted me to be happy again. He used to say, if something happens to me, I want you to find somebody else. And I'm like, if something happens to me, I hope you never find anybody else. Like, just jokingly. Just jokingly.
Yeah.
And, Melissa was ill for a long time, and that afforded her and Zach the time to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And similar conversations were had. So that was a gift that they both left us too, was that gift of like, hey, we would expect you to go live life. Like, there's not going to be any hard feelings. I will tell you, the hardest moment for me, and this is a conversation that Zach and I have had, is that realization that what we see on earth is not what is going to be in heaven. Because one of my biggest guilt things was, okay, so I'm going to date you, and then if we get married, what's going to happen when I go to heaven? Like, how am I going to explain this? Like, which choice am I going to make? Like,
right.
You're going to be with Melissa, and I'm going to be like, this is going to be weird. And I actually voiced that to a pastor friend of mine, and he said, we can't understand what heaven's going to be like, but marriage is a reflection of Christ's relationship to the church. And the belief is, in heaven, that's not the thing. Like, you'll still recognize Jason, and he'll still recognize you, and you'll still know, but it's probably not that marriage. And that was a crushing blow in the moment of just like,
how dare you?
How dare you say that? Of course.
Yeah.
But also probably the most freeing thing that anyone could have said, because it freed me to really realize that that's right. Our relationship in heaven, we don't need that marriage relationship because we're going to be there with Jesus.
Right.
It was devastating in the moment, but now I'm like, hey, we're going to get there, and it's going to be real fun because we hung out when we were on earth. So we'll hang out in heaven and it will be fine. So some of that guilt feeling started to let go, A, because Jason and Melissa both gave us that gift, but B, because now that perspective and living in that eternal perspective helps that guilt feeling.
Definitely. It's so hard not to think outside of your earthly body and your earthly mind. It's having that blind faith. It's not tangible. And I am a person, I need details. I need proof.
I need the plan, please.
Yeah,
I need the plan, please.
Same. And so, it would be hard not to think about, your marriage in heaven, but we don't need the things on earth that we will have in heaven. We won't need those earthly binds, those, that's a really great perspective, a really great explanation for that. I'm glad that offered some freedom for you.
It was good. It was such a good.
Gives me something to kick around this weekend.
It's it's one of those like booty kicking moments in your faith where you're like, okay, well, even the perspective of, shortly after the funeral, someone was talking about scripture, about the heavenly realm being so much closer than we think, just, paper thin. And I thought, sure, but my husband is still not here.
Right.
But God, but all the winks that we get, we get winks. The boys will do something and Zach will kind of laugh because it's something that Melissa would have done, or I'll remember a story and we'll joke about it. Or, I see winks of Jason all the time. We used to do the American Sign Language sign for I love you. And just today we were walking in a store and someone had a keychain that had that. And I'll always acknowledge in my head, hey, babe, I see you. Hey, babe, I see you. Those things are so important to our earthly being.
Yes.
But if we didn't hurt, if we didn't feel that, then what would be the purpose of heaven? For me, the pain reminds me that there is a place that there's only beauty. Yeah. So I have to understand that the pain of what we experience now is nothing compared to the joy. And I know the second that Jason and Melissa walked into Jesus's arms, they wouldn't want to come back.
No.
Not for everything here.
Right.
And I wouldn't want that either as much. And I tell the boys this all the time. I tell them, if I could take away all the pain and bring your mom back, I would bring her back in an instant. Like in an instant, I would change all of this.
Yeah.
And Zach says the same about Jason. Like, we look at each other often and say, if I could take this away for you, I would. Like, I'm very thankful for you and I love you and I love our life. But if we could flip it back, we would flip it back in a second.
Sure.
But they're happy. They're safe. They're great. So my job now as my kids' parents and as bonus mom is to do everything I can to drive their eyes towards Jesus and to be an earthly representation of love and caring to them. And that's going to look different for each of them. All 5 of them, I mother in a different fashion because that's what we're all called to do that.
Yeah.
But after this situation and the uniqueness of it, it's driven that into my heart even more, as meeting people and meeting my kiddos where they're at and loving them in the way that they need right now. And that changes sometimes from day to day. Sometimes, especially Crew, again, some days he is all about me. And some days when I ask him to read for 20 minutes, he's not all about me. And learning to be okay with the days. I mean, when my kids were not all about me, I was like, yeah, whatever, move on, right? Like this, I'm the only mom you've got. Like, so just deal with it. That's not the approach. My kids all the time now are like, are you kidding me? We would have never gotten away with that. I mean, it's little dumb things. Yeah. But, they've even commented like, hey, Mom, you're doing a really good job learning from what we did and then how to be different with the boys. And they see it, and they see Zach really striving for that too. But they also see us striving to be happy and joyful and celebrate. I mean, we celebrate stupid moments. I mean, there's always a reason to eat chocolate or drink coffee or champagne. Let's be really for real.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. And you and Zach get to bring together the experiences that you learned in your first marriages.
With no animosity.
Right.
That's another perspective that people often say, well, I have the experience, I got divorced. I'm like, yeah, but you probably don't necessarily still like, there's a reason that you're divorced. Like, we didn't choose this. I mean, if we could choose something different, we would, but we get to bring the experience of a fulfilled love relationship into a new, fully developed, loving relationship without animosity towards,
which is huge,
the other side.
That's such a unique perspective, and a curse and a blessing. A curse and a blessing, but a blessing to have that in what you're choosing to do today, how you're raising kids today, how you're building your relationship with each other. You have that roadmap. And like you said, it didn't end in any negative way. It was still full of love and hope, and to be able to parlay that into your new marriage is such a wonderful thing to have. The beauty that comes from the ashes, like you said. We'll talk about giving yourself permission to feel joy again and to feel that love and to be excited.
That was a difficult one. More so for the kids. Like, for me, I am old enough, older than Methuselah, I feel like some days. It was more difficult for me to give permission to myself to feel joy because I didn't want the kids to think that it lessened the joy that I had with Jason. So that was the more difficult. Like, I could give myself permission to be happy again, but I think I limited how happy I would let myself be, or at least express, because I didn't want them to feel any kind of way. And again, my kids, as they did, checked me and like, Mom, it's okay. Right. It's fine. It's whatever. I think Zach, and admittedly, if he were sitting here, he would tell you the same thing, I give him a hard time. He's very business-minded, very calculated, very, not calculated in a bad way, but everything is very methodical, and so for him, happiness was a lot farther down on the list. Like he had, I want to make sure that the boys are okay. I want to see this. And he said in our wedding vows, like the day that he finally released his feelings of like, okay, it's okay to love this person, was he had come home from Kaysen from basketball practice. And I was at the house hanging out with Creek and crew, and we were sitting on the couch, snuggling, reading a book. And he came in, and that's something I would do. It doesn't matter. Like if there's a kid, I'm going to grab him and we're going to do that. But he came in and he said that was the moment that his heart allowed him to finally kind of tip over to that joy scale, because he was like, okay, it's going to be okay. Like I see this now. I see that it's going to be okay. And so for me, obviously being a girl, I'm much less methodical and business-like.
We lead with our hearts.
Yeah, we do, which is a good thing. But I mean, much more early on, I was like, okay, if I'm going to have a chance at joy, this is the only way, at least from a marriage perspective, that I could see that working for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it looks great on you. Joy and love. It looks great on Zach. It's, as somebody who, watched what he went through from a distance, it's so wonderful to see, that light return and that joy and the genuine love and happiness. And I'm sure through finding each other and finding, this new path, you are different people. Like you said, there is a Ryann who existed before, February of 21 it was. And then there's a Ryann who existed after. And what does finding yourself again look like?
You let me know whenever. No, I'm just kidding. That is honestly, of all struggles, finding myself, my voice, again, has been the biggest of that, because my kids were almost done with school, and Jason and I had talked like, hey, once the kids are out of school, then he traveled some, you can travel with me and we can do that. And so you have these plans. And once that blew up, it just felt like being in a desert with no map, in just this little bitty tent, no protection, no anything. And it felt so raw. Like everything felt raw. I would tell people, I feel like I just want to rip my skin off and run, because I don't know. Like I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. And now all these responsibilities I didn't have before, I was taking on. And it's taken time, and I'm still maybe not quite all the way there yet. I mean, let's be so for real. But redefining like what I want this next chapter to look like and what I want to be able to share. My biggest prayer, and still the prayer that leads my forefront of my heart, is like, Lord, give me platforms where I can tell our story, because I want there to be one person that, their life is different because of our story. There's got to be purpose behind this pain. And that's the one thing that the Lord has constantly taught me, is that there is no pain that does not have purpose. There's always a purpose. And so I think that's the driving factor for me now, is finding platforms or finding ways that I can use the pain that both Zach and I have gone through and the kids have gone through for a purpose. And so it's been a lot of reinvention. Things that I used to like, I don't really care about now, or things I used to think were really important, I don't think are important now. It's softened a lot of hard edges that I had, edges that needed to be softening. It's probably sharpened a few that even Jason and Zach, they say the same things about me, about certain things, and it's annoying as I'll get out.
How dare you point out?
I know. How dare you point out that I need to chill out more often? But also, it's such a blessing. Zach's a wonderful partner in life, and he has given me nothing but full freedom to find that. And he said very early on, like, hey, listen, you've raised 2 kids, and I want you to be as involved with the boys as you want to be, but I also understand that you've been there. And I also have tried to give him the space to experience all the things too, because you can get a little jaded after you've been through all the experiences of like, yeah, we've been there, it's fine. So also that joy, but he's been such a wonderful partner of like, hey, go find what it is that ignites that spark again, ignites what makes you happy. And I mean, I've been a physical therapist for 25 years. I'm tired. So it's been such a nice transition to move into wellness coaching. My dream job, if you ask me, my dream thing that I would love now
Yeah.
is to be able to write about our experience, to be able to talk about it more, to be able to, speak at events or just meet with people where they are to talk about it. The Lord hasn't really provided that road yet, but that's the spark in my heart.
Well,
if I had
coming.
I'm prayerfully seeking
Absolutely.
that. Prayerfully
You speak
that.
it and it will come. I'm a firm believer in that. So, well, that's wonderful. Well, share more with us about your wellness business and what you're doing now.
Well, something that saved me also through the time of losing Jason was movement. I mean, if you stop moving, you age so much faster and you feel so much worse. So, I would run, I would lift, and those are truly things that as a therapist, I believed in before, but now having gone through grief, there's something that I push into even more. So when looking at what I saw in the clinic and what I experienced myself, I've had a hysterectomy, I've done all the things, and looking at women in the clinic who were telling me, I'm tired and I don't feel right and I don't feel good, but my doctor says things are, my numbers look normal, and just saying, numbers aren't the whole story, and wanting to speak into them. And in the clinic, you don't have enough time to do that. And so that was just kind of my natural jump of hey, I want to create a space where women feel like they can talk about how they're feeling and get actual advice based on where they're at in this space of life. And influencers are wonderful,
right? But
not on a 20-year-old influencer who is telling them things that are not going to work for their body.
Right.
So really pushing into that space. It's a space saturated with voices that are good in some ways and bad in other ways. So it's my mission also to bring faith into that space, and really drive back into the fact that Psalms 139 says that we're fearfully and wonderfully made. So
Amen.
Just because things are changing doesn't mean that it's not for a purpose and that there's nothing beautiful in that, and really push into that. And so it's my honor to get to step in with women and take them through a program talking about nutrition, but also talking about mental health and journaling and regulation and movement and just all the things that I wish somebody would have told me.
Sure. Right. 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I wish
20
years.
Started. Yeah. No kidding.
Well, it's so wonderful. I love that. And, that sounds to me like you finding your purpose. Like you have really rediscovered yourself, and which I would imagine through your journey is hard to do when your kids have been your focus through everything. Still weird. Are, but
it's weird.
It's like, who am I outside of mom and wife? That's something I talk about with my boy's mom. She and I are doing an episode this season on, not just we're not just a mom. We're not just a wife or a partner. Like, who are we outside of that? Who are all women outside of that? We are our, our own people. We are individuals. And I think we lose sight of that. Sorry, men, but we lose sight of that easier than men, or more so, because we carry so much.
Well, and it's been such a weird time of transition for me because, my son's out of the house and now my daughter's out of the house in college, and I have the 3 boys, but I'm not a mom in the same way.
Right.
Because of the way that we're blended. So it has been probably the hardest season of my life, the last few months, of just really, what is it that makes me tick? What makes me happy? And I sit in front of women all the time and I ask them, what do you like? What do you enjoy doing? And the sad reality is that most of the time they can't tell me. They'll tell me, oh, I love going to my kids' sporting events. And I'm like, hey, that's great. But what do you like? What makes you happy? And they can't tell me one thing. But then I looked in my journal where I said, what makes me happy? And it took me 30 minutes to come up with something that was solely about me.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember the me before necessarily.
Sure.
And the things that she liked, I don't really care as much for now.
Yeah. Well, and you were married for 22 and a half years. Yeah. So who are you before that?
I don't know.
It's exactly, that's finding yourself at with grown children and now taking on
kids.
Exactly. Yeah. You are a different you completely. We're in different seasons of life with different experiences. And so it's like you said, reinventing yourself with your new, the new knowledge that you have that you didn't have 20 years ago. You didn't have 10 years ago.
And being okay to say, I have permission to do something better now because I have new information now. And I think sometimes we're so fearful to reinvent because it might discover that we weren't okay before or that we weren't perfect before. And I'm a big perfectionist. That's something I'm really working on breaking up with.
Me too.
And being okay with failing and reframing failure as learning, because you're never really, really failing unless you stop.
Right. Absolutely. You're always learning.
Always learning.
Yeah. Well, to our listeners, we have people of all walks that listen, but are there any tools or practices to help parents stay grounded through grief and transition that you can share?
I think the one thing that I definitely first and foremost want to say is that if you're in that stage of grief and you're in that parenting realm, acknowledging that you are having those emotions is the biggest thing. In acknowledging emotion, I would like to change things that I did the first year after Jason died with my kids. There's things that I am not proud of, not proud of, but I wish I could go back and fix. I wish I could go back and tell them how I was feeling. I tried to hide a lot of what I was feeling. And I think it would have helped my son, especially if I was a little bit more honest about how I was feeling, because I think I didn't always give him space to really see that I was struggling. My daughter, being who she is, slept with me every night for the first 6 months after Jason died, just because she wanted to make sure I was okay. I wish that I could have done a better job of letting her know and releasing some of that. So there's things that I wish, and I think that's the biggest tool that I could tell someone is give yourself permission to feel and to express what you're feeling. Also, journaling is probably the best tool. I had a friend who lost, she's still one of my closest friends. She lost her husband when we were 19, and she actually came down, showed up unannounced while Jason was in the hospital. Actually, the day that he got put on ECMO, she was there, and she told me, listen, if the worst happens, I just want you to understand that it's almost like a blanket will come over you and it will protect you for like the first year, and you'll feel like you're in a fog and it will insulate you, but it will be okay. And I remember that night just thinking, I don't know why you're telling me this. It's going to be fine. She's not wrong. I mean, from the second that I said goodbye to Jason, that fog did hit. But she also mailed me a blank notebook shortly after he died. And in it, she said, even if you just draw circles, open it every day and write something. She said, I used to just write circles some days in my grief. And I think that gave me such a release. It was a place I could share things that I couldn't say to anybody else, ugly things, things that made me so angry that I didn't think anybody could understand. So I think journaling is probably the biggest tool that I could say, whether or not you're going through grief or not, just in the daily practice of sitting down and checking in with yourself and saying, what number am I today? Like, even if you're single, even if you are not married, just checking in with yourself every day, giving yourself 5 minutes to say, you know what, I'm not okay today.
Yeah.
I'm not. Okay, well, why do I think that is? And journaling that out. And then it's a great tool to go back and go, well, that was dumb. Like looking back on it, there's things that I journaled or things that I've said in my journal that I'm like, I'm glad I didn't say that to anyone else today. But journaling and taking those 5-minute check-ins, and honestly, I will still to this day defend the 15-minute time frames for when you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're anxious or whatever, letting yourself experience it for that amount of time and then deciding, what do I need to nurture and what do I need to let go right now of?
Yeah. My sister always says, let yourself feel it, feel whatever you need to, but you don't have to snuggle with it all day. Then you can put it down. It'll be there later, but just feel it while you need to feel it, but then put it down, and allow yourself to say, okay, I felt that. Now I'm okay. And I can move forward in this moment.
I can remember asking my counselor several times, like, when is it going to be over? Like, when am I like in the early grief too? That's another thing, is just realizing that you have to go through it. Like there is not a time frame. There is not an absolute, and the world does go on, and that's hurtful at first because you're just like, well, hey, my world's gotten blown up. Like, please don't tell me that your world is okay. My world's not. But
how dare you?
I can remember him saying, what, do you want me to give you a date? Like October 1st? And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, that's not how this works. And so that's something also that I carry with me now, especially, with Zach and with the boys, is that there is not a time frame for this. And there are, Dylan has called me in the past and said, close to the date that Jason passed, he didn't always remember the date, but he, in the past couple of years, has been sick the days preceding. And he would be like, man, I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, well, buddy, your body remembers what your mind doesn't want to. And so just, that self-check-in tool is just so important to get over those days.
For sure. If you don't check in mentally, like you say, your body knows.
Oh, your body remembers.
It will tell you. Well, what do you most want grieving and blended families to hear from your story? What's a one takeaway, I should say?
Choose joy. Like, choose to remember the positives and choose to live life, because life is to be lived. And even in grief, you have to let yourself live your life. Like, the biggest honor that we give Jason and Melissa is to live and to carry them forward. And so as a grieving and blended family, like, that is something that I would say is, find a way to honor them, find a way to find who you are in them, with them. Like, I carry stupid things. I will think, I still quote Tommy Boy on the daily. My cell phone text ring is still Fat Guy in a Little Coat, because that was one of our favorite movies. So that's a little innocuous way that I carry Jason forward. But for grieving families and blended families, like, choosing that and choosing to talk about them and to fully bring them with you every single day is the one thing that I would just champion, to choose that joy, to choose to walk forward, because it is a choice. And it is a choice that you sometimes have to make on a daily basis. Sometimes you just wake up and it's not a choice that you want to make because you want to be sad that day. But it can be better than you can ever imagine. And it doesn't replace what you lost, but it can be beautiful and joyful and happy in ways that you could have never imagined. And that's the joy of living life, is that you get to have some of the same things again, even after being shattered. Maybe different, but different is amazing and beautiful and wonderful.
Ryann, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, this conversation has, honored love and grief and growth, and how all those things can exist at the same time.
And do.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm so grateful that you were willing to share your heart and your story today. And I know our listeners are thankful as well. So
thank you again.
I appreciate your time and for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me a platform to talk about Melissa and Jason and how much we love and miss them, but also our fabulous kids. And Zach's okay too. I'll keep him around.
I love it. You should. He's a good egg.
He's a good egg.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being here for this conversation. If this episode brought up something in you, whether that's grief, hope, or something in between, just know that you're not alone in it. There is a space for all of it, for all of us, and there is no right way to walk through it. I am so grateful to have had Ryann today, and as always, you are doing better than you think. We'll see you next time.